There's a close relationship between prevention of bullying and building a strong community. So now we're going to take a look at the 6 steps to bullying prevention. The 6-step process for bullying prevention is as follows. First, build an authentic community. Second, commit to nonviolence. Third, deepen awareness and develop empathy. Fourth, develop positive communication strategies. Fifth, promote personal responsibility. And finally, speak up and speak out. So what is authentic community? An authentic community is when people come together and they decide that when they're together, they're going to be, as much as possible, honest and open and true to who they are. When you have an authentic community, the members of that community acknowledge a mutual comfort or willingness to accept their own and each other's difficult emotions, as well as to accept that none of us are perfect and that we will all have bad days, and to sort of make space for forgiving and accepting those times when someone is struggling or not having a good day. In an authentic community, each person commits to taking responsibility for their own feelings and their own needs, and to not taking responsibility for the feelings or needs of others, but letting other people be responsible for their own feelings and their own needs. And so then how that works is that each member of the authentic community agrees to hear and support each other member as we all take responsibility for ourselves within that community. So the first step in bullying prevention is to build an authentic community, and that requires some specific things to happen. One of the first and most challenging things is adult modeling. So what that means is that the adults in the environment need to be able to actively demonstrate taking responsibility for their own feelings and needs, and allowing other people to take responsibility for their feelings and needs. And one of the trickiest things about doing this is not projecting your interpretation of someone else's feelings or what they need, or equally difficult sometimes is not projecting why they need or want something or what their intentions or motivations are. But instead, if you have a question, asking. So that would include asking the children in your program if they need help rather than assuming that they do, and creating lots of opportunities for the children that you work with to offer their support to you and to ask you for your support when needed. It also means interacting with other adults in this way, with other adults within the program. Next is what's called making connections. And so making connections is about making sure that the individual people in the program see each other as a source of support and acceptance. So when a child is having a good experience, everyone is rallying around that child, including the other children. And when a child is having a difficult experience, the community, the group, the kids and adults are saying, that's rough, let us know if we can help. Do you want space or do you want support? And then letting the child who's struggling determine what they want and figure it out from there. This also means actively avoiding saying things that are negative or judgmental. Next is crafting an identity. This means that the different members of the community come together to decide who we are as a community, what it means to us to be a part of this community. And you can do some really fun, really concrete things like decide if you might have a mascot for your organization, or designing a flag or a motto, or choosing colors. And that could be for the whole program, or it could be for individual groups or classrooms or teams within that program. But making sure that you spend the time to allow the people who are working together to craft a community to all feel excited about who the community is, both in terms of sort of identity markers and in terms of what we stand for and what we are when we're together and what we do. Then you want to create investment. This means taking the time and the energy to continue putting forth that sense of identity and the values of that group in a way that is meaningful to the kids and that the kids have a voice in, so that over time the kids begin to feel like there's value to being a part of that community, and their parents begin to feel like there's value to them being a part of it. From there, the next step is actually quite natural, which is for the people who are a part of a community to take pride in it, to be glad that they're a part of it and proud of what it accomplishes, and to look forward to being together with the members of the authentic community and to telling others, like parents at home or each other or new members of the group or new teachers, what it means to be a part of your community. Next is to make sure that you have set and agreed upon different strategies and expectations. So it's very common for programs to have rules or behavioral expectations for the kids to follow. Less common is to make sure that the adults also follow those rules and behavioral expectations. And even less common is sitting down together and putting strategies in place as a community for what we're going to do when we're having trouble, what we're going to do when we're upset or frustrated with somebody, what we're going to do when we hear somebody say something that's teasing or hurtful to someone else, how as a community we're going to agree to handle these issues as they arise, because no one is perfect and we are going to have those times that we struggle or forget. And last is making sure that everyone in your community knows that they are going to get supported by the rest of the community no matter what happens. That means when someone makes a mistake or has a bad day, that you draw a distinction between making a mistake or having a bad day and being a bad person. And that you say, we know you're not a bad person even though you're having a hard time right now, and we value you as a part of our community. So we need you to, let's say, calm yourself down, or behave more safely during sports, or whatever it is. But we know that you can do that, and it's important to us to support you in doing that because you are a part of our community. Once you're starting to feel really solid about your authentic community and the elements of that step are really starting to happen, the next step is called committing to nonviolence. So this starts with defining violence broadly. Violence is not just about physical aggression. Violence is about any interaction where one person consciously or unconsciously harms another person or takes away their personal power. So thinking about things like teasing someone, or telling a lie, or rolling your eyes at someone, or excluding someone from something, or telling someone you don't believe in them, as elements of that broader definition of violence, helps to broaden people's awareness or perspective on the ways in which they unintentionally harm one another. From there, you want to build an understanding of how violence has a damaging ripple effect. This is a similar concept to that cycle of bullying or violence, that when someone is on the receiving end of violence, it causes them to either shrink into themselves more and become even more upset, or it causes them to then seek someone else to be violent towards or to be aggressive towards. And so that cycle continues and continues, with us harming ourselves and harming each other, until eventually we have an environment whose main focus is that violent element instead of enjoyment and learning and fun. Once that understanding is there, the next step is acknowledging that emotions are information. Understanding that when you are angry or upset or hurt or scared or sad, it's not just a feeling, it's also information. And it's useful information for you and for others around you to have. It's okay to be angry because that lets us know that something is wrong, that someone has crossed our boundary, or that we've crossed our own boundary, or that something is not going the way it should go. The issue is that once that's happened, we need to find an appropriate, constructive, and authentic way to resolve that rather than simply lashing out, because that's how we perpetuate the cycle of violence. So being able to say that feelings are always valid because they tell us something about how we're doing and what we need is a very important skill, and it's easier said than done. Once you become more comfortable with that, and the kids in your group become more comfortable and skilled with it, next is recognizing your emotions as they occur. Being able to name the feeling that you're having in the moment for yourself, not someone else telling you you're angry right now, but you yourself being able to say, right now I'm angry. I need a moment. As that skill builds over time, and that's going to be different for different kids, but it's a work in progress. But as that skill becomes something that the kids are conscious of and working on, Next is to understand your triggers. Everyone has things that set them off, and they're different for each person. So the more that you understand for yourself what your triggers are, and that each child that you work with understands for him or herself what sets them off, the more we can communicate about that to other people before we are set off, and make sure that we put ourselves in situations that set us up for success. And last is setting up an environment where it is not only acceptable but rewarded to take a time out or a break away from other people or away from an activity when you're struggling. When you need to do that in order to figure out what you're feeling and what you need, or to get yourself to a place where you're making good decisions about what to do with those feelings. Taking a break is an important skill to have, and every child should be encouraged to do it and rewarded when they do it. Great. So we have worked on this authentic community, and the kids are getting invested in it and committed to it, and it's getting stronger every day. And we have then worked on nonviolence and understanding violence broadly, and understanding that feelings are information, and beginning to be gentle with ourselves and each other, and accept the broader range of our emotions and find ways of managing them that are more appropriate. Now it's time for the next step. The third strategy is called deepening awareness and developing empathy. And this starts with going further into that work on accepting and understanding your feelings. In this case, particularly focusing on your own feelings and accepting and being okay with them, building not only an awareness of them, but an acceptance of them as an important source of information. Accepting that sometimes you're going to have feelings that are pleasant and good, and sometimes you're going to have feelings that are unpleasant, or what we call bad feelings. Then from there, we work on recognizing what we like and find worthwhile about ourselves, and also what other people like or find worthwhile about us. As that awareness builds, we're also going to work on building an awareness of what's likable and worthwhile about other people. There are a lot of different ways you can do this, from reflective writing or comparing and contrasting yourself to an admirable character, either in history or in fiction, to little simple games like sitting in a circle and giving a high five to the person to the left of you and telling you something they like about them, and then having them give a high five to the person next to them and say something they like about that person, and going all the way around the circle and then changing directions. You can also do sort of informal things like give each child a treat and have them give it to someone else along with a compliment. So just practice building that awareness. And doing the same thing with complimenting ourselves is also a valuable thing to do, especially with kids, because especially younger kids may not yet have learned to be ashamed of liking themselves, but that's something that people often get inculcated to as they get older. So as we build that ability to accept our own feelings as they occur, and to recognize what's likable about ourselves and other people, then we become increasingly ready to build empathy. And so practicing empathy in theoretical situations is the first step in building that skill actively. And how that looks is that you take a news story or something from fiction or from a movie, and you ask the kids to put themselves into an individual character or person's shoes. And imagine if they were in that situation. It's important to frame this, what would you do, rather than what do you think he is doing or feeling or thinking. So empathy is about really placing yourself into someone else's frame and saying, well, if I were living in that situation, or if I had had that happen to me, I would feel this way. So we're not projecting our feelings onto other people, we're just imagining what feelings we would have in those situations. And then once the kids become more familiar and comfortable with that, the next step is practicing empathy in the community in safe and easy ways. So, for instance, it's Eleanor's birthday. What do you think you would be feeling if it was your birthday? Or Mrs. Jones just got a new puppy. What do you think you would be feeling if you just got a new puppy? So, fun, easy, safe explorations first. And then we take a look at practicing empathy in tough situations after the fact. So something happens, some kids struggle over a toy, or somebody says something hurtful to somebody else. And in that moment, expecting empathy to arise, especially for the kids who are involved, is a lot to expect. But after the fact, going back and saying, I wonder if you can remember back and imagine what you would feel like if somebody had said or done that to you. So that after the fact, we can then build that empathy in a tough situation. And once the kids are increasing their skill and comfort in that, then it becomes time to start asking for empathy in the moment in tough situations. So as you're trying to resolve an issue, you can ask the individuals who are involved what they would feel like if they were in the other person's situation.